आए हुए सारे मेहमानों का इस्तकबाल। पंजाब ना हिंदू ना मुसलमान, पंजाब जींदा गुरां दे नां ते। किसी समय प्रोफैसर पूरन सिंह ने जो एक गल लिखी सी, एक शेयर्ड स्पेस की गल कर रही सी कि मिडीवल पंजाब जिहड़ा हैगा वो एक शेयर्ड स्पेस जो डिवेलप हो रहा। उस शेयर्ड स्पेस की जो असीं गल करन लई गाथा पाई तां असीं गोस्ट नां दा एक प्रोग्राम डिज़ाइन किया, जिहदे च असीं हर तीजे शनिचरवार इत्थे इकट्ठे हुंदे आ। पंजाब नाल संबंधित वक्-वक् टाइटल्स के उत्ते असीं गलबात करते हैं, जिहदे च पंजाब की हिस्टरी, पंजाब की इकोनॉमी, पंजाब का लिटरेचर असीं कोशिश करते हैं कि वक्-वक् तरह के टाइटल्स जिहड़े हैगे आ उन्हां दे उत्ते भरवीं जिहड़ी चर्चा हैगी आ वो कीती जा सके। उसे सिलसिले च अज जिस किताब के बारे च असीं चर्चा करन जा रहे हैं, बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण किताब जिहड़ी हैगी आ मेमोयर ऑफ प्री-पार्टीशन पंजाब, रुचि साहनी होना दी ऑटोबायोग्राफी जिहड़ी हैगी आ वो मैडम नीरा बुरा उन्होंने एडिट की है। रुचि साहनी वो शख्सियत ने जिन्होंने पंजाब के उस सांझे तसव्वुर नूं एक वक्रे नज़रिए तो देखा। वो बहुत गल्लां दे विच पहले पंजाबी ने जिन्हां दे बारे च असीं बहुती गल नहीं कर सके है। मसलन खास तौर के उत्ते साइंस दे विच कैरियर बनाउण वाले वो पहले भाग पंजाबी हैगे आ, और खास तौर के उत्ते साइंस नूं एज ए प्रोफैशन जो आम तौर के उत्ते असीं मॉडर्निटी की गल करते हैं तो उस समय दे विच जिहड़े बंदे लिख रहे आ पढ़ रहे हैगे आ वो ज़्यादातर जां तां वकालत वाल जा रहे हैगे आ ते जां ICS वाल। वो पहला बंदा हैगा जिहड़ा साइंस नूं और खास तौर के उत्ते कैमिकल साइंस नूं अपना कैरियर बनाउंदा हैगा। वो पहला पंजाब का बंदा हैगा जिहड़ा पंजाब की इस सरजमीन के उत्ते इस गल के उत्ते पाबंद रहिंदा हैगा कि पंजाबी दे विच वर्नाकुलर्स दे विच जिहड़ी साइंस हैगी उसनूं पढ़ाया जाए ताकि उसनूं मासस तक पहुँचाया जा सके। वो पहला बंदा जिहड़ा हैगा मैट्रोलॉजिकल डिपार्टमेंट शिमले दे विच जिहड़ा शुरू हुंदा हैगा उत्थे काम करन वाला पहला पंजाबी बनता हैगा। सो कई गल्लां दे विच खास तौर ते निवेकली गल ये भी हैगी आ कि वो ब्रह्मो समाज नाल संबंधित होने के बावजूद जो असीं गल भी करांगे बाद दे विच कि जिस तरह दी मूवमेंट्स कंसर्न हो रही ने, चाहे वो आर्य समाज हैगा, चाहे वो ब्रह्मो समाज हैगा, सिंह सभा मूवमेंट हैगी आ, उहदे विच डिवेलप होंदे हुए जिहड़े फ्रिक्शनस ने उहदे बावजूद किदां सिੱਖੀ दे नाल जुड़े हुए हैं, क्योंकि किदां एक इंटरैक्शन जिहड़ा हैगा उस दौर का चल रहा। सो ऑटोबायोग्राफी सिर्फ उस एक शख्सियत की ऑटोबायोग्राफी नहीं है, एक तरह की जिहड़ी हैगी इस पंजाब के उस सांझे तसव्वुर की उस शेयर्ड स्पेस की जिसनों ईश्वर दयाल गौड़ उन्होंने सी किताब पिछले जे चर्चा की फरीदा खाक ना निंदी है, जिहदे जो फरीद नानकी कैदा कहते हैं जिस चीज़ नूं उस कायदे का एक तसव्वुर है। इट्स इमेजिन्ड जिहड़ा हैगा पंजाब का एक तसव्वुर उसकी जामनी जिहड़ी हैगी वो किताब भरदी हैगी आ। ते बहुत ही खूबसूरत किताब जिहड़ी हैगी आ वो इस किताब बारे तुहानूं पैनलिस्ट अपनी अपनी गल करनगे। इस तो पहला कि असीं पैनलिस्टां राहीं कोई गल करिए, मैं चाहांगा कि डॉक्टर महेंद्र सिंह इस किताब नूं तुहाडे नाल इंट्रोड्यूस कराउण। उस तो बाद मैडम नीरा जिहड़े हैगे आ वो कुछ फोटोग्राफ्स तुहानूं रुचि साहनी होना दियां दिखाउणगे। उस तो बाद मैं तुहानूं पैनलिस्टां नूं इंट्रोड्यूस करवाऊँगा तो उन्हां नाल असीं गलबात करांगे। मैं सब तो पहला गुजारिश करांगा डॉक्टर महेंद्र सिंह कि वो
My great personal regards for this great Punjabi called Lala Ruchi Sahni. Now comes the lady who gave us this chance to assemble here this evening. That is Dr.Neera Burra, great granddaughter, I believe, of Ruchi Sahni, and we are fortunate to also have Ruchi Sahni's two granddaughters with us. If you stand up, I think it would be nice for us. The two granddaughters, please, can you stand up for it? And Montessori also.
उन्हें जिहड़ा जिक्र किया डॉक्टर महेंद्र सिंह उन्होंने कि बलराज साहनी जिहड़े खुद भी भेरे के रहने वाले सी ते रुचि साहनी भी उसे भेरे के रहने वाले सी। भेरा इज़ दैट विलेज पर्टिकुलरली कि दोवें एको ही पिंड नूं बिलोंग करने वाले सी। और एक खास गल जिहड़ी हैगी है, मोहन सिंह ने नज़म लिखी सी पंजाब बारे, जे असीं इस किताब की किसी ना किसी रूप दे विच इसनूं डिस्क्राइब करना होवे दैट पोइट्री शुड बी वेरी वैल्यूएबल फॉर दैट। वो लिखते हैं पंजाब बारे एक नज़म दे विच कि भारत है वांग मुंदरी विच नग। पंजाब दे विच एक लाइन है बहुत खूबसूरत कि गंगा बनावे देवते, यमुना बनावे देवियाँ, आशिक मगर बना सके पानी चढ़ावता। वो चढ़ाव जिहड़ा हैगा उही कंडा हैगा, उस चढ़ाव के कंडे के उत्ते ही जिहड़ा रुचि साहनी होना की जिंदगी बीती ते वो उन्होंने अंदर अंश भी बड़े कमाल ने। एक थां ते पंजाबी च उन्होंने किताब के बहुत थां ते जिक्र किया हैगा। वो वार-वार एक गल उनका तकिया कलाम सी कहते सीगे कि मेरे यार पतंग उड़ाया कर और कट जाए तो गम ना खाया कर। सो वो जी खूबसूरती हैगी आ कि फकरां वर्गी जिंदगी जी हैगी आ। गुरदयाल सिंह साडे बड़े बड़े नावलिस्ट ने, उन्होंने नावल है परसा, ਗ੍ਰੇਟ ਨਾਵਲ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ 'ਚ ਵੀ ਟ੍ਰਾਂਸਲੇਟ ਹੈ, ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸਰ ਰਾਣਾ ਨਈਅਰ ਨੇ ਟ੍ਰਾਂਸਲੇਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ, ਅਤੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਥਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਪਰਸੇ ਦਾ ਜ਼ਿਕਰ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਹਰ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਵੱਖਰੇ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੈ। ਇੱਕ ਥਾਂ 'ਤੇ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ ਪਰਸਾ ਵੱਖਰਾ ਕਿਉਂ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਸਵਾਲ ਪੁੱਛਦਾ ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਜਵਾਬ ਦਿੰਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ, ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਖੇਤ, ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਲੀਹ ਪਾਉਣ ਵਾਲਾ ਬੰਦਾ ਤਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਇੱਕ ਅੱਧਾ ਹੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਬਾਅਦ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਤੇ ਰਾਹ ਬਣਾਉਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਤਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਕਈ ਨਿਕਲ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ। ਸੋ ਰੁਚੀ ਰਾਮ ਸਾਹਨੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀਆਂ 'ਚੋਂ ਨੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਲੀਹ ਪਾਈ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਲੀਹ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਬਾਅਦ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਡਿਵੈਲਪ ਹੋਇਆ, ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਫ੍ਰਿਕਸ਼ਨਸ ਵੀ ਆਈਆਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ। ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ 'ਤੇ ਭਗਵਾਨ ਜੋਸ਼ ਨੇ ਇਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਖੂਬਸੂਰਤ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ, ਉਹ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਕਿ ਅੱਜ ਵੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨਗੇ। ਅਸੀਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਸ਼ੁਕਰਗੁਜ਼ਾਰ ਹਾਂ ਤਿੰਨੇ ਪੈਨਲਿਸਟ ਦੇ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਸਾਡੇ ਸੱਦੇ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਮਹਿੰਦਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੇ ਆਲਰੇਡੀ ਮੇਰਾ ਕੰਮ ਪੂਰਾ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ, ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਮੈਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਹਾਂਗਾ। ਮੈਂ ਮੈਡਮ ਨੀਰਾ ਨੂੰ ਗੁਜ਼ਾਰਿਸ਼ ਕਰਾਂਗਾ ਕਿ ਸ਼ੀ ਵਿਲ ਕਮ ਐਂਡ ਡਾਈ।
It took a long time. It's taken about 8 years to do this research. And so this has been a fairly long and complicated journey of looking for material. The one person who actually helped me with the initial material and also with papers, photographs was an uncle, Professor Ashok Sahni, who was also a professor at Punjab University, whose sister is Professor Mohini Malik, sitting here. And he was very generous because he just said, Neera, I have a whole lot of papers, why don't you come? So I had never met him. The first time I heard about him. So I went to Lucknow and he took out all these papers and things. So that gave me some more material to sort of work on. And finally, when the book was coming out, he asked me to come again to Lucknow, and I've written about it in the introduction of this book. He said, and he gave me a thela full of negatives, and he said, look, my kids are abroad, God knows whether they are interested or not. You're the only one I know who will be interested in Ruchi Ram Sahni. Maybe there are things here. You take them, you look after them, keep them. So I brought them here, and through another friend's help, I scanned the negatives, and I found some of the negatives were of Ruchi Ram Sahni, of the house of my Masi and Mamas as children, which nobody, including them, had ever seen because they were just negatives that his father, Dr. Sahni, had taken. He was an amateur photographer. And an aunt of mine who just passed away at the age of 100 just a few months back, when she saw the photo of the Kothi, she said, oh my God, this is the first time I'm seeing this in 70 years. You know, because they had left in 1947, so she was really shocked, and she called me up in the morning and said, I have not been able to sleep. It was just so traumatic to actually see a photo, which was taken by Dr. Sahni. So I'll quickly just show you a few photos, just of Ruchi Ram Sahni's compound in Rattigan Road. Next, this is another photo. Actually, it's too much light. This is Ruchi Ram Sahni and his wife Ishwari Devi Anand in Gulmarg. He used to go to Gulmarg every year in the summer holidays when Government College was closed for 2-3 months. And that is also a story that my mother used to talk about, how all the grandchildren would go with him and spend the summer there. And this is the condition of one of the homeworks, the history of my own times that I found, which were later digitized. 18. This is Ruchi Ram Sahni working on the homeworks. This is Bradla Hall. The house was just right next to Bradla Hall. In fact, Bradla Hall was the headquarters of the Indian National Congress, and their wall, they had a common wall, I believe. This is the Kothi where Ruchi Ram Sahni lived, and then he built houses for 2 of his daughters, one of whom was my grandmother. This is the Burra workshop in 1897 when Ruchi Ram Sahni started the Punjab Science Institute. He used to actually get some of the equipment processed by Mistri in the Burra railway workshop. Because he believed that if science had to be taught in schools, then it was very important that there must be laboratory equipment. And it was not viable for the equipment to come from Great Britain, and he therefore set up the Punjab Science Institute and a workshop. This is what Government College looked like when he was a student. He was given the title of Rai Sahab in 1909 because of his contribution to the agricultural and industrial exhibition. But he gave it up in 1919 at the request of the Khilafat movement, Shaukat Ali of the Khilafat movement, who said, if you're a nationalist and you're a supporter of the Khilafat movement, how can you keep? And he was very happy to give it up. This was an uncharacteristic photo of him in a three-piece suit, which actually none of his grandchildren recognized him and said it was definitely not him. But this is Birbal Sahni, Bodhraj Sahni, and on the other side is the Ruchi Sahni. This is when he went to England in 1914. And this is my mother in 1947, who was the main reason why I did this research, because she was the one who told me a lot about it. Thank you.
How should one begin to talk about a person like Ruchi Sahni? It's very interesting. When I was doing my MSc honors in Punjab University in chemistry department, and I wrote a thesis on surface reaction of charcoal with ozone in carbon tetrachloride solution. A very complicated one. And my teacher constantly reminded me, he says, people say Punjab is a land of martyrs, saints, and he said, no, Punjab is a land of scientists. I said, how come he has ever heard the name of Ruchi Sahni? Then Pandit Vidyarthi and many others, Birbal Sahni. So I said, I've never heard the name of these people. And this is for the first time that the name came in my vision of a person like Ruchi Sahni. Now, I never knew that I would leave chemistry and one day try to be a student of history, which I am at the moment. And I will begin by saying, and it has been said, we live in stories, we live by stories. We all are stories waiting to be told by somebody. Ruchi Sahni is one of the luckiest men in the world whose daughter is there, whose granddaughter is there to tell that story and to bring him alive in front of our own eyes and his contribution and place him in the complex history of Punjab. Why say complex history of Punjab? Mahinder referred to a point, he made a point. Ruchi Sahni was a person who was trying to transcend the boundaries and trying to occupy a space which is beyond narrow identities. But the interesting story of Punjab history is this. When Ruchi Sahni was trying to be Brahmo Samaji, trying to transcend the boundaries of religions on one side, Punjabi Hindus on one side, and Punjabi Sikhs on the other side, in the form of Arya Samaj, and then the form of Singh Sabha movement were precisely trying to build religious boundaries. So I should not prolong all this because other persons will contribute to other aspects of his personality. All said and done, if one is to ask the question finally, what is the significance of the writings of Ruchi Sahni? What's the significance of his life of Ruchi Sahni? What's the significance of those 11 volumes which he had written for us and history has created? And I think Ruchi Sahni gives us a vantage point to look at Punjab history, reconstruct. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, sir. एक बारिश आदि पुस्तक ਜਿਹੜੀ रुचि राम साहनी ਉਹਨਾਂ ਲਈ ਕਾਫੀ ਢੁਕਦੀ ਹੈ ਉੱਥਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਲਿਖਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਕੂੰਜਾਂ ਵਾਂਗ ਮਮੂਲੀਆਂ ਦੇਸ ਛੱਡੇ ਅਸਾਂ ਜ਼ਾਤ ਸਫਾਤ ਤੇ ਭੇਸ ਵੀ.
So what is it about individual lives that gets us so interested and intrigued? And when that life happens to be that of an ancestor, we are all agog. The sense of personal investment that Neera Burra has made in this project and the massive research material she has discovered, it's quite amazing the amount of work she has actually discovered and accumulated. The state machinery that she has managed to snap out of inaction, if not somnolence, The familial connections she has re-established all underline what good research is all about. Burra deserves our heartiest congratulations in not only accomplishing what she has set out to do, that is, bring to us the life of her ancestor in his own words, but also for making available to generations of researchers materials that would not have been available to them earlier. So we are very, very grateful to you, Neera. Here I might add that nostalgia mixed with a sense of loss is particularly sharp for a generation of Punjabis, descendants of those unfortunate ones who had to leave their homeland as it became alien territory, with the drawing of a line on a map, the plundering of lives and tearing asunder of a way of life that modern state's cartographic technology, even if it was one that was out of date, allowed. And let me just, bear with me, I'm going to read out a poem by W.H. Auden that he wrote on Cyril Radcliffe's drawing up of this line that partitioned Punjab. And he writes, he got down to work to the task of settling the fate of millions. The maps at his disposal were out of date, and the census returns almost certainly incorrect. But there was no time to check them, no time to inspect. Contested areas, the weather was frightfully hot, but a bout of dysentery kept him constantly on the trot. But in 7 weeks it was done, the frontiers decided, a continent for better or worse divided. So a generation like mine was brought up on stories of the Punjab that our parents left when they were fairly young themselves, but one that they could never forget nor get over the sense of loss it caused. The grieving of people with permanently splintered selves is difficult to capture in words for those who have not witnessed such folk. Our generation, both Neera's and mine, on the other hand, has been brought up on what some scholars call post-memory, not a first-hand memory of those who actually suffered the tragedy of dislocation, but perhaps a second-hand cultural memory passed down from the primary victims of partition and its myriad violence. This cultural memory, however, has stamped itself on us and has had a shaping influence on our lives as well. Note the excitement of Burra when she found 22 Rattigan Road house in Lahore. I myself experienced goosebumps when in 2006 I found myself on a night bus from Lahore to Islamabad, and as I walked with a start in the middle of the night, I started seeing signboards of places mentioned all the time by my mother, who was 13 when she left Punjab, but a Punjab that never left her. As the bus wove its way in the Salt Range Mountains, Pindadan Khan, Nyani Loon, Pera, and so on, places that also appear in this autobiography, a topography both strange from being situated in now an alien country and familiar because of my mother's uncontrollable verbosity. In 2008, I visited the Kasbah of Chunia, the paternal base of my father, including the Pir's Mazar, the mazar that featured very briefly in my first book. The geographical and demographic change that Punjab suffered in 1947 and the resulting diaspora within India and around the world, often referred to as the Third Punjab, means that readership for things as they were when dismemberment was not experienced is enormous. So there are going to be many, many readers for Ruchi. But so also for wishing to understand why dismemberment happened. Though the silence on the reasons for the partition on the one hand and the unfolding of the tragic and violent events on the other has become in the last 2 decades the subject of excellent academic writing, I think our curiosity on the subject is far from satiated. We want to know more as we continue to grapple with many conundrums of the event and its prehistories. In this context, Ruchi Ramsani, as a member of the Brahmo Samaj, with its secular and anti-caste credentials, in many ways a misfit in the more acrimonious politics spearheaded by organizations like the Arya Samaj, needs a more careful scrutiny. We tend, in retrospect, keeping the partition in mind, overemphasize agnostic relationships and societal divisiveness. Ruchi Ramsani, with his scientific temperament and friendships across religions, is a personality that begs a deeper study. He represents a way of thinking and apprehending circumstances that may not have prevailed in the end, but was an important way of being for all that. So why are some individual lives worth reading? An individual life can become the lens through which we can read a time. What makes this interesting is that instead of getting a dry account of some events, we get to understand them through the life of a person. To give just a couple of examples to illustrate my point, we all know about racism, how rampant it was in the British Raj. But our blood boils when we empathize with the protagonist, Ruchi Ramsani, who is superseded by a colleague 26 years his junior in the chemistry department of the Government College, Lahore, only because he had white skin. We get a close encounter with racism through Ruchi Ramsani because we as readers of his memoirs feel for the man whose life we are following. Similarly, when we read about the artist's journey undertaken by the young Ruchi Ram at that point of time, along with his schoolmate Nebaram from Dera Ismail Khan to Jhang to get to the high school in Adiwal on boat and the Kajawas on camel back, one understands something of the enterprise of a young Khatri boy as he and they invested heavily in the new colonial education and became the pillars of the vast administrative machinery of the colonial state. Ruchi Ramsani's journey also sent a flashback on the early life of my own father, who in the newly established canal colonies, where his father served as a patwari, went from Chak Chali to perhaps Chak Pantali. I don't remember when the second Chak he went to, but from one village to another. Because they were only called Chaks, these villages had just been carved out in the canal colony land, merrily singing, 1 foot up and 1 foot down, this is the way to London town. So you can imagine in the Chaks of Punjab, well, that's how they got an education. And about the pioneering efforts of the Khatris on their path to self-improvement, that favourite program of the colonial state for the natives, we have the remarkable memoirs of not only Ruchi Ramsani but also Prakash Tandon in his mid-20th century and Ved Mehta in Dadiji and many more, in fact, waiting to be discovered. Now, I want to comment very briefly on the form of the autobiography of Ruchi Ramsani. Writing autobiography is always a complex process. Memory, recall, performance, audience come into play as we sit to think and write about our life. Memory is always from a presentist perspective. While it is now impossible to recall every moment of one's life, we recall what we think are significant and important moments for the story that we wish to tell, for the experience we have had that we wish to share. In that sense, memory and experience are already an interpretation of our life. The narrative that we create, then, is one of the many that we can create, keeping the audience in mind, the performance we wish to give. The silences are important as well. These may encompass what we do not wish to expose of the self, or we may wish to protect others, near and dear ones, or what cultural and other expectations allow. All of this needs to be kept in mind. The complex interplay between the narrative that we create and a particular quest for truth-telling is important to understand. Thus the question, what is it that comes through in Ruchi Ramsani's autobiography? Who is the person we encounter? A couple of come through in the very brief foreword that Ruchi Sahni writes. His multiple attempts to capture his life. He begins the endeavor at least 4 times, he says, in 1907, 14, 33 and 42. When he finally succeeds, shows his belief in the significance of his life and its events. The fact that he writes the Homot and the Shomot, that is the short history of my times and the history of my times, and mentions this in the least means that these were conjoined projects. The first, his life through important times, and the second, the salient times through his eyes. In short, as many scholars of Indian men's autobiographies from the 19th through to the 20th century have written, and I'm talking about Uday Kumar's work, Sridhar Kaviraj's work, Venkata Chalapathi's work. The feeling that the times that these people inhabited were too important not to be captured, and making comparison with the present. Venkata Chalapathy has this lovely phrase that he uses in Tamil, Antakulam Intakulam. Those days, these days. So that trope comes again and again. The feeling that a sharp change occurred in their life from the earlier, more set, maybe even timeless in their understanding pattern of life. Therefore, he wrote the Homot and the Shomot. It is significant to remember that whether in the autobiography or the Homot, the focus remains sharply on public events. In one, the public events of importance of an individual life, and the second, the salient public events that shaped individual lives. In other words, intimate relationships and their emotional resonances hardly feature. Perhaps a more careful reading of the autobiography, which I must admit I have not yet had the time to indulge in, may reveal, as Sridhar Kaviraj has argued for the life of Shivnath Shastri, that the writing of autobiography was also the etching out or the invention of a private life. I wish to also point to the modernity of this project, but before I do so, another point which can connect with notions of a good life in our own culture as well. This is the point about both living to a ripe old age, a life fulfilled, and having lived a good life. Achieved success in one's profession, become a respected person, and brought up a family of achievers, and I think Ruchi Sahni does that. The Punjabi society that Ruchi Sahni writes of celebrated the death of an old person by decorating the baya that carried the body, the janaza, accompanied by a playing band and through Atishbazi. May I suggest writing an autobiography was a modern way of celebrating a fulfilled life. Here a brief mention of Indian self-deprecatory tradition. One must not be vain even when writing of the self. The pride that Ruchi Sahni took in the vividness and freshness of his memory, immediately followed by a cautionary note. On that he was not so vain to imagine it would always be so. Gives us a clue to the continuing importance of this trope. But the times were too significant not to be written about, and so he did write his autobiography. Now time features in another way in the autobiography, as a contrast between an earlier time and the present, as not only one of change, the Antakulam Intakulam trope, but also as one of moral degeneration. For example, he writes, of these days of boasted, I'm quoting him, of these days of boasted Western culture and civilization, everything formal, sweetness of earlier relations missing. Or how earlier there were cordial relations between Hindus and Muslims, so something that was obviously something that bothered a lot. However, now the Muslims don't dine with the Hindus because they feel angst against the Hindus' earlier treatment of them as dogs. Or the communal fanaticism of the time through which he felt they were now passing. Or when he writes that the code of honor of businessmen to which the modern man is a complete stranger, and so on. Time that features thus is not, I think, to show a moral degeneration that cannot be redeemed. Rather, it is a manner in which the life being presented of the self itself becomes morally elevated and so worthy of emulation. Evoking an Islamist tradition of writing autobiography, Barbara Metcalf speaks of life as lesson aspect of it. Lives lived so immaculately that they become lessons for the future generation. In that sense, Ruchi Sahni was the ancestor that we would all cherish. Now, very quickly, I would like to touch upon some issues that interest me as a social and a cultural historian of colonial Punjab. Historians, of course, often read autobiographies not for the performance that the autobiographer might be giving, the self that has been fashioned, but also to abstract social and cultural traits that we use to build our own diverse narratives. There is much in this autobiography that will therefore strike historians. And I'm going to give you just my own personal favorites. It's a huge gold mine waiting to be discovered, but just my own. I was really interested to understand and follow the making of Khatri lives, for example. Ruchi Sahni's family was originally from Burra, where they retained a family house. As Yadinda mentioned, Balrat Sahni's family was also from Burra. And both give us an idea of the social and caste organization of the Khatris. The Ruchi Sahni never uses the term Khatri himself, which is also interesting. Prakash Tandon tells us about the Tandons of Gujarat, for example, and the Sehgals of Gujarat, and so on and so forth. So how the Mahallas were, fashioned. What he does give a lot of attention to in his early is his early education, which may be seen to be a very typical one of a shopkeeper's son. Early initiation into letters and multiplication tables at the hands of a panda, ritual with takti and reed pen, the facility with the cryptic Lande script, and then a kind of internship with a Marwari business family, learning the ropes of business dealings, bookkeeping, hundi exchanges, and much else. Also mentions his father's great facility with complex math problems because he had named formulae, Gur he called them, to help him solve those. His own later love for math and science perhaps had initiation in his father's facility with math and interest in alchemy. Shopkeeping and business successes and failures. So, there's much. Those who are interested in writing a Khatri social history, there is much in this book for them to follow. I'm also interested in gender questions and gender relations as they appear in this book. His mention, for example, of the names of his brothers. But the sister is referred to as his unmarried sister twice. I think a whole history of an understanding of daughters, the centrality of the institution of marriage, and the emotional life of a girl child in her natal family can be read from just this phrase. Even though his own daughters were brought up differently, Ruchi Sahni also tells us a little about his mother, of her being very religious and keeping many fasts but diligent, of being forbearing in adversity, but not very much more, and that she did not approve of his social and religious experiments. However, when his wife came into the picture, she acted as a kind of buffer between his non-orthodox behavior in his mother's and his wife's fairly orthodox ways. I think again much can be read of women's and men's religiosity in this period, when notions of religion and religious communities were changing dramatically in the period under discussion. Thirdly, the fluidity between Sikhism and Hinduism comes out very sharply. Early on in his text, it is very clear that he identifies with the Hindu populace, for example. Speaking of the Bhavnis, the bathing festival, he speaks about how the whole Hindu male population gathered at the river bank. His father is shown as being very fond of his daily rituals of puja before his idols, and when he fell ill, and since he was the fondest of Ruchiram, he would make him change the idol's clothes and bathe the idols, etc. Also how he made him read every afternoon a chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, and when all the 18 chapters were done, to start all over again. He also describes the manner in which the Ras Leela was regularly performed in the town. He also read many Gurmukhi texts. The The identification with Hindus is quite significant at the same time. At one point he writes, "The pious Hindu heart of my father could not tolerate this." That is, he was seeing a cow being eaten and then he tried to save the cow. However, he later speaks of being from a Sikh family, and this is how he puts it. "Although my father was an extremely orthodox man and did his puja to the idols scrupulously every morning, he had great faith in the Sikh gurus, and indeed my whole family was known to be a Sikh family." He tells us about the Dharamshala at Pera, the Bhais of Kairala, and that he descended from Matidas, the Sikh martyr. He says, "I was myself initiated into the Sikh faith as a Sahijdhari by Bhai Pratap Singh of Karyala," and I think that is also something, to say that as a Sahijdhari he was initiated is quite interesting from its own times. And his father, of course, read the daily Rehras and Sukhmani Sahib. His father also regularly entertained Brahmins and various sadhus. There is much for anyone interested in reading about the unfixity of identities in this book. So the fact that he actually belongs to Brahma Samaj later on, even though he had very, very close friends in the Arya Samaj, and he talks particularly of Rudat Saldana or Rudat Vidyarthi, is really, very, very interesting. He also consciously writes about the relations between the Hindus and the Muslims in his time, the keeping of pollution taboos, yet also interaction at various levels. The separate drinking water arrangements in the mission school. Indeed, he writes humorously of how water poured from mashaks onto pots was poured onto pots by the Muslim mashkis. They took the lid off with wooden sticks, he said, the non-conductivity of wood so far as communal pollution was concerned. The exchanges of gifts on various festivals, how the Nawab of the place held annual melas and the gifts that were given. How during the Russo-Turco War of 1876, the Muslims of the town, quite agitated, would ask him of news and how he read the Civil and Military Gazette every day to keep them updated. On the whole, he also speaks of the good relations between the communities and also talks about the Naziris, which were a problem, and occasional Sunni-Shia conflict. And there's some very, very interesting notions about charity as well. I will not go into the detail. And finally, what is close to my heart, and I think a number of people sitting here, their hearts as well, because he remembers a number of his teachers. For someone who's been a teacher almost 30 years of my own life, almost, I'm mesmerized by how much he remembers his teachers. The headmaster, Kashinath Chatterjee, who literally initiated him, much like a novice in an older tradition. His name was Ruchi, and for 6 days the man said, "I will not, admit you into my school because Ruchi is a meaningless name." So then he finally gave him a name, Ruchi, and he came to be called Ruchi Ram Sai. And he continued to be very, very fond of this particular personality. But he mentions Babu Chandranath Mittar, Babu Ishan Chandra Ghosh, so you see all the Bengalis in Punjab. The Persian teacher Khalifa Hamiduddin, an authority on Shariat law, and the fiery reformer Pandit Shiv Narayan Pandit. Then again, Shashi Bhushan Mukherjee, T.G. Lewis, Master Sagar Chand, J. Singh, and so on. He himself is so excited about education and about reading English literature. The person who comes in for a lot of praise was a great poet and scholar of Urdu language and literature, Maulvi Muhammad Hussain Azad from Gujarat. And how he would dictate to his daughter every night his portrayal of the court of Akbar, and how he gave a powerful twist to Urdu literature, letting it out from its old, cramped, medieval setting, etc. He also mentions Sheikh Campbell Bowman and the experiments together. And the multilingualism that accompanied this process of remarkably diverse and often eclectic acquisition of language. I think that's a running thread throughout the autograph. Now, I don't want to carry on. I think I've taken more than enough of my time. I must leave some time to Yogesh. So what do I say in conclusion? We read autobiographies for various reasons. For nostalgia for the history that they tell us, for the fictional element that may be present in them, but surely also for inspiration. What could be more inspirational than the comment of his father, Karamchand Sahni, to young Ruchi when times became bad? He said, Ruchi Rama, badli aa rahi hai badli, bas le, bas le, bas le. Aur ki karegi? Sade leede hi gine de. May we all have the strength to see off the temporary badlis in our life. Thank you, Neera, for this wonderful.
I thought while reading introduction, I had two things in mind. Two things came to my mind. One, not of a professional historian, unfortunately, but of an archaeologist. Ruchi Sahib is the second person who is looking at Punjab as probably a witness to the space, first-hand witness to the space. But Ruchi probably is one different kind of witness, also because he's a chemist. Actually, I thought his training as a scientist, his training as a chemist made a lot of difference in the way he looked upon Punjab. But I thought, and so aptly put by the archivist herself, is probably Ruchi Sahib was seeking you rather than you seeking him.
ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਯੋਗੇਸ਼। ਜਿਹੜੀ ਚੰਡੀਗੜ੍ਹ ਆਰਕਾਈਵ 'ਚੋਂ ਰੂਹ ਨੀਰਾ ਹੁਣੀ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਇਆ ਉਹ ਸਾਰੀ ਥੋੜੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਕਿ ਹੁਣ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ 'ਚ ਪ੍ਰਵੇਸ਼ ਕਰ ਚੁੱਕੀ ਹੈ।